Hello and welcome to episode 1353 of The Sleeper and the Bust. It is Friday, December 13th. I'm your host, Paul Sporer, joined this morning after too long
Yeah,
by my co-host, Justin Mason. How's it going, man?
it's going well, man. It's middle of the or not middle. It's the beginning of the draft season for me. Like 3 drafts in. All
Three.
gladiators.
Okay.
I'm definitely cutting back
So
though.
your in-season commitment on those, for those that don't know, that's 23 rounds and
Yeah,
that's it. Nothing. You can do nothing with that.
yeah,
So, piling those up in the off-season isn't nearly as bad.
yeah. Like I don't think I'm gonna do any draft champions this year. I don't really once gladiator season ends, which probably ends I think the beginning of January. Like I
Yes.
won't have another draft until Barf gets together in late
Good.
February. So
Good.
I mean I say that now and then
I
I
know.
may get the itch, but I still have projections that I'm doing. I'm really trying to limit my fab leagues, especially.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm hoping, but yeah, I mean, I've just been doing projections and rankings. I just updated the shortstop rankings and the catcher rankings last night
Excellent.
on the Fangraph. So, like, yeah,
All positions are live. I was
yeah.
the straggler, but I got it done.
Well, you only had
Um,
like 200,
well, I didn't write up all 200 though, and I
you
actually
should have.
overwrote. I know, but I overwrote a handful of my profiles, transferring from my desktop to my laptop to take it to Dallas with me, and I was pretty upset about that. I was able to save a few of them, and then rewrote them. So there's only like 25, 30 up right now, which there was only going to be 45. So it wasn't, I didn't lose like, all of them. But yeah, given that we're a month earlier than we were last year, there was no need, at least in my opinion, to have all of them done. I don't need a one sentence comment on the 150th ranked guy. Let's get you some meat to chew on here on these top 30. And then I'm going to have Fast and Furious updates. I'll probably have two updates before the holidays, another big one before the new year, and then should be done with all 200 write-ups into January before most people even start drafting. So I still feel pretty good about that. Love that we got everything up a month early, and we will have those
Mhm.
living, breathing documents again like we did last year. I thought that was really, really fun and a good way to do it. So great work by the team getting everything up. You can find all of those on the Rotographs page. One thing with our extended time off here, and I know I think I said this last episode, but this time it's true. We should be back on a regular schedule here. We should be able to get two in next week, and then ideally the 23rd. That's the only one I won't fully commit to. Is if for family reasons, if we can't do the 23rd, that's fine. But we should have two next week, and then back the 30th at the very latest after that, and then on our normal schedule into January. But with that little down period, the hot stove's been blazing hot, Justin.
It's been
So
amazing. Like,
it's been a
I mean,
great offseason. We've gotten trades, we've gotten huge free agent moves. The big dominoes are falling. In fact, the biggest one was right off the bat. We'll get to Juan Soto in a moment, but we've seen pitcher ones. Your boys are already in the mix. So are mine, but obviously not at the same level with Alex Cobb. We'll talk about him in a moment. But let's just get started with Juan Soto. We got to do it. Obviously, he stays in New York, signs a $1 billion deal to stay in New York, but go to the Mets. Were you surprised that he went to the Mets and that the Yankees didn't get him? Did you ever have him getting out of New York? What was your first thought when you saw the Soto news?
I really felt like now, I mean, Boston made a push, right? Like in
Mm-hmm.
Boston, made a lot of sense because one of the things that Soto asked for was that this wasn't going to be the team who signs him only move, right? Like he wanted
Right.
them to keep going and getting other players around him. And Boston was really well set up, as we saw, to like go get a Garrett Crochet who doesn't cost a
Mm-hmm.
lot of money, but costed a lot of prospect stock. So uh, they just have such a great farm system, and a lot of those guys in that great farm system are pretty close to being ready. Roman Anthony's going to be probably coming up at some point this year. So I thought
For sure.
Boston was like an interesting dark horse that kind of I hadn't really thought about initially, but ultimately when you knew it was going to come down to money, like you had to know the Mets or the Yankees were going to get him, and
Right.
that's why my Giants didn't even put in a bid.
And in
So
fairness, you guys we're going to talk about Adames in a moment. It's not like you guys haven't made a big splash, but you
mhm.
know, it just always felt like New York, one of the two New Yorks. I think, listen, I know these deals, especially these mega ones. I mean, we don't even have that much history to go off of, something this gargantuan, but I think they messed up by not signing him.
They
And I
absolutely
understand
did. Like it's I mean, I get like, yeah, I mean, they've got other holes to fill. It was a lot of money.
they're the
Um,
Yankees, though, dude.
yeah, like
And I just don't get it.
obviously every team can afford this in some regard. Maybe not every team can actually afford
Maybe
this.
not every
So
team
this,
with this one, right? Well, yeah,
yeah,
we're pretty, we're not shy about saying that. I don't want to hear you crying poor owners. Every owner can afford a $100 million deal at the very least. They can get into the
52
nine figures.
million,
This
yeah,
is crazy,
$52 million a year was almost like the size of the entire A's payroll last year.
which is so that's crazy. But if you're ever going to back up a truck, this is the free agent to do it. He's 26 next year. You just don't get that. You don't get Frank Thomas from the left side, Ted Williams-esque looking free agents at
And
26 years old.
and he's a guy that is going to age really, really well. Like
Offensively. And I know
yeah, offensively,
I'm
yeah.
hearing a lot like, oh, well, he's already bad in the field, so he's going to be first base. I don't give a damn. I'm sorry. When you hit this
Yeah.
well, I truly do not care.
Yeah, you're talking about a guy who can win the batting title while hitting you 40 home runs. Like it's
Right.
just like it.
With a
I mean,
firm 400s OBP.
yeah, like it's unreal, just like how talented he is, and this will, like obviously, any contract is going to look bad when a guy gets to like the mid 30s
Sure.
but like that's a decade away. Like
Yeah.
you've got
Yeah.
like
Again, 26 years old. You get 4 seasons on the right side of 30. And again, like you say with Soto, his skills should age beautifully on the
yeah,
offensive side. We'll see what happens defensively. I wouldn't expect him to turn into some great right fielder. And even if he's a mediocre first baseman and eventually a DH, I do not care. This guy is so good. It's unbelievable. And again, I know it's a colossal deal, but these Yankees, I do not recognize these Yankees. These are not the
yeah.
Yankees from the 90s and 2000s that we were used to throwing their financial weight around. And I'm not saying they should frivolously spend. To me, I don't think Juan Soto's frivolous. So, it's whatever. I don't care about the Yankees, so I'm not like upset for them. I just think it's crazy that having the knowledge of how good this guy is and how much they know him, that they didn't. Although, in a little bit of fairness to them, it seemed like Cohen was just like, tell me whatever they have and I'll beat it.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what happened.
If he was
I think
financially driven for Soto, then he's like, okay, here's the offer they've got. Okay, we'll one up that. Here's the offer they got. We'll one up that. So I guess in some fairness to them, they were never beating the Mets on money, and so if he was comfortable enough to go to Citi Field, then they were going to get Soto, and they did.
and this is what all the other owners feared when Cohen was
Right.
let into the league as an owner, right? Was he was going to say at some point, like, I'm just going to get whoever I want. Because, like, a move like this, like, there was a GM that was quoted, I think, at the GM meetings, or maybe it was the winter meeting, when he was asked about, like, what do you think about Soto to the Mets? He goes, well, now they can't afford to get anybody else, so, like, it's fine. Really? I don't think they can't. Like, they're still probably going to get Alonso back, and I mean, this guy is worth like $62 billion. Like he can get whatever he wants.
And again, yeah, we talk about every owner's rich, don't cry, etc. We'd be remiss not to point out that Cohen is on a different level, right? They are all rich. I don't want to hear any of them cry poor. It's total BS.
Yeah.
But I'd be full of crap if I didn't acknowledge that Cohen is still a cut above, even in this pool of extremely wealthy people.
All the owners are part of the 1%, but Cohen is part of the 0.1%. Like he
exactly,
is, like,
exactly. It's next level.
rich, yeah.
And I am eager to see what they do in addition to this. Let's talk Soto in city, right? He's going from one New York to the other. We know he's brilliant. We don't care where he's playing. It's not going to hurt him or anything like that. But how do you feel about this with the lineup they've got right now? You know, they might add pieces, but batting in between Lindor and Vientos. Where is Soto within your first round? I assume you've got him as a first rounder. So where is he? And did he change much going from one New York to the other?
Yeah, I didn't really change his projection at all.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
don't think I would too, or either,
you know,
rather.
you look at like his X home runs for City Field, and they're actually better than it was last year. So like, like I don't think he's going to lose any power. I don't, the team around him isn't quite as good as I think it was, especially at the top half of the lineup in New York or with the Yankees. It's both
Mm-hmm.
but like I believe that the Mets will re-sign Alonso and bring in other pieces. So like I didn't really change the projection at all. I still have him as like a mid first rounder, and I've already drafted him in one of my gladiators. So I love Soto for this year. I think this is a fantastic thing. But I know a lot of people don't like the big player in their first contract year, which I
Right.
understand. But at the
And
same
I
time,
subscribe to that, but I'll probably still take Soto. I got to be honest. I might
yeah,
break my rule a little bit. Although, what if he goes full Beltron? Remember when Carlos Beltran's first year was pretty rough with the Mets, and then he became an absolute mega stud.
I think
I
it's a
don't
little
really see that for
different.
Soto but I could be wrong, and I am consistent that I do worry about that. So I don't want to totally just upend the fact that I preach a little bit of caution with the first year. It's not that nobody does well. It's that I like to give a transition. So the smart system that Glenn Colton and Rick Wolf use is part of their tenets, and I totally agree with it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't subscribe to it to begin with, and then I think it's a little bit different when you're talking about just a generational talent like Juan
Hmm.
Soto is, and the fact like he went from Washington to San Diego to New York like
True, but
within a
never with a
matter of a
deal
couple of
like
seasons.
this. But never
Yeah,
with a
but
deal
he
like
knew he
this.
was playing for it, like right. So like
True, but
the
it's different
pressure
when
was
you
still
got it.
there. I think he'll be fine. I'm not super worried
I'm
about
sure
him.
he will be. I'm not sitting here trying to stake a claim that Juan Soto is going to have, a 120 WRC plus. And like I said, I'm probably going to make an exception for him. And I got to be honest too. For me, it is more with pitchers, and that's probably just my hyper focus on pitchers. But like we'll get to the Max Fried deal. He's someone. There's other reasons to maybe take a pause on him for a year
Yeah,
too.
I
So
think
it's
there
not
is.
just the deal. But anyway, Soto, we don't need to spend too much time on him. We probably
I
already
will
spent too much.
say
He's
in
amazing.
in terms of Soto, like in like where he's being drafted and stuff like that, I think he kind of marked the last of like the uber elite players. I think once
Hmm.
you get past seven, you start getting to Kyle Tucker and Tatis and Betts and Skeens. Those are like 1B players. Like they're all really
Okay.
still very very good, but I think all the players, at Soto's spot and ahead of him are have very few question marks.
So
Whereas you start
Tani,
getting, yeah,
Witt Jr., Judge, Ellie, Gunner, J Ram, Soto, and then Tucker, Tatis, Betts. I got Betts in that group though.
I
I can't
actually
quit
have
Betts. I
bets
love him.
quite a bit lower. Um,
Interesting. Okay, well we'll get into that another day because we're
I
doing
don't know that
hot
bets is a
stove. But
first rounder.
okay, you're not baiting me with that. Bring that up next episode. I want to deep dive
Well,
that.
we're gonna talk about your pitching ranks at the next episode, right? Like,
Oh yeah, yeah,
okay,
yeah.
we
We
gotta,
definitely have to do that. We
I
definitely have
gotta
to do
roast
that.
you.
Roast me. I thought, well, this is my coronation of greatness. Okay, whatever. Well, even though you're being mean to me, I'll be nice to you. Let's go talk about your team making a big splash early on. Blake Snell obviously leaves. Oh wait, I didn't even put Blake Snell on here. Fake friend over here. Anyway, we are still going to talk about your team first. They lose Blake Snell, which I'm sure you expected and you weren't terribly upset about. But in comes Willy Adames on the big deal. Just at first blush, I liked this. Were you excited when you saw the Willy Adames news of him coming to San Francisco for your boys?
Yes and no. I mean, it's always great to get like a top tier free agent, especially after years and years of finishing second on every single top tier free agent, except for Carlos Correa, who then had his contract voided because of his ankle issues.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, as a Giants fan, like you still kind of look at all the teams around you in the Padres and the Dodgers and the Diamondbacks, and you go, does Adames make your team any better than them? Because I don't think it does.
Does Adames make your team any better than San Diego and LA, you mean?
Yeah, San Diego, LA, or even Arizona.
I mean, makes your team better. I don't know that it
makes our
has
team
to
better,
make
but
it better than that. No one player could make it better than those teams.
So why, unless you're going to go on a spending spree, which they
No.
have said they're not going to do?
I don't think you have to go on a spending spree to justify this move.
I'm not saying you have to do to justify the move. I just want my Giants to be competitive for a World Series, and they're
Sure.
not going to be. And so, if
But
you're
no
not
single
going
move
to
would
be,
do that.
exactly, then rebuild that
They're
farm
not going
system.
to. They're
I
not
know,
going to do
but
that.
it bums me out that they won't accept being bad for a few years, because then you get stuck in this kind of perpetual cycle of being mediocre.
Aren't they 5 seconds away from winning 102 games? Can we just be honest?
Yeah,
about
20, but that was such
21?
a fluke. Yeah, 2021. Yeah,
it was 21. Okay, so we're getting further away from it. Fair enough. 81, 79, 80 the last 3 years.
It was a fluky season. Like, there's no reason. They were probably a 90-win team and somehow won 100.
107. Insane. When you look at that team, you're like, that's a 107-win team. Now, I get your general principle. Okay, well, I'm going to pull you away from whining about your ball club and talk more about
as a fantasy player.
Yeah, let's get into the fantasy idea.
Now, while I know you're gonna say, like, well, Oracle Park isn't like as bad on righties as it is on lefties, which is true. It's still a worse park than Milwaukee.
Sure,
and
I don't disagree with that.
It's also a worse.
Don't try to predict what I'm gonna say. You don't know what I'm gonna say.
It's a worse lineup as well. And so, like, this definitely hurts Adames in terms of his fantasy projection for
how much?
20. Now, so here's the thing. Okay, so when I initially did my projections with Adames, I had him as like the 4th shortstop. And then I kind of reworked it a little bit because I didn't know where he was going to land and so on and so forth.
And just to interject quickly, you did the shortstop rankings. So
yes, I did the shortstop rankings.
Very pertinent to you.
Yeah. So I think it dropped him down to 9th. Now this move after I did my projections again once he signed, it only moved him down like 1 spot. So, like, it's not a massive move in terms of like a projection changing the rankings, but I do think it should kind of drop. It dropped him pretty much from one tier to another.
I think that's fair.
So, because like I just don't see a world in which Adames is going to be getting back to like 100 plus RBIs. I mean, last year he had 93 runs. 112 RBIs. Like, I just don't see that happening to Francisco because the team around him isn't as good. And then I also dropped his stolen base total quite a bit. Like, I had him for 15 stolen bases, and I think I dropped him down to 9.
Because your favorite team doesn't run to the level of Baltimore or Milwaukee, excuse me.
And I just can't imagine they're going to be like, "Hey, we just spent $200 million on you. Why don't you go steal a bunch of bases?" Like, and
Adames is not some sort of like burner anyway that they need to be. This is a guy loose.
that like he was on Milwaukee who loves to run. They used it a contract year. Like, I think that 21 stolen base season last year is going to represent a career high. Like, I don't think he ever gets back to 20 stolen bases. So, I think he takes a hit in terms of his overall value. Now, that being said, I think he will take a hit in the ADP. That
he already has. Can I give you the numbers?
Yeah, go right ahead.
So, sorry to cut you off, but early October into November, November 15th, 19 drafts, Willy Adames, ADP of 64. In 9 drafts since, so a smaller sample, but in the 9 drafts since November 16th, and I just kind of used, month-long periods there for each. He's moved down to 75. So an 11-spot drop, nothing crazy, but about a round. Do you agree with that for Adames there to move down?
Yeah, I think that's fine. Um, so, but I do think that there are going to be some drafts in which he just drops way too far. Like at 10, like that's pretty much where I have him in my. I think that's exactly where I have him in my projections.
Yes, and you have him,
Um,
yeah, 10th on your list. Your most recent update puts him 10th on among shortstops for Adames. Now, are you taking the
Neil
discount? Like,
Cruz is going way too high. Sorry.
what is this, last year again?
Yeah.
As he moved up all offseason. So his max for Adames during the second period here, this most recent period,
Mhm.
is 90. In that 80 to 90 range, is that somewhere where you get interested in Adames?
Yeah, I think so. I think
Okay.
that would be where I would get interested. And I think he now represents kind of that last line of like demarcation for like, these are the elite shortstops. We
I
we have a
agree. The way
really
your tiers
deep,
work. Yep.
yeah, we have a pretty deep like upper tier, but like when you start getting into like I love Matt McLean. I know Ezekiel Tovar had a really great season last year. I still love
He's
Volpe,
trying to
but
make
like
you look
all
bad, man.
he did like, and I
I
even said it.
know.
I think in my ranking article,
Yeah.
I even said it. Like, and I'm still not in on him. Like the underlying skills are so bad. Like, it's just
I do think it is fair, right? Like, I don't think you're just digging in because you're afraid to admit you're wrong. Just briefly on Tovar, like, yeah, he did go 26-6 and make you look bad, especially the 26. I don't even know if his biggest proponents thought Ezekiel Tovar was
no,
ripping 26 bombs,
no one thought
but
that.
still 29% K and 3% walk. Javi Baez is making fun of that plate profile. That is terrible for
He
Tovar. So
swings outside of the zone almost 45% of the time.
I'm
Like
actually
for
still with
context,
you.
league average is 24 or 25% for swinging outside the zone, and
Now,
he's at 45.
if I can play the devil's advocate for those that would like him, their number one thing, of course, would be that he's 23. So this isn't 100% who he is. He could develop a bit, sure. And then he's still in course. Okay, I'll grant both
Yes,
of those.
both of those. Yeah.
But we do not really ever see plate skills like this turn.
Yeah.
You might see incremental improvements. I could see incremental improvements to the Ks for Tovar, but guys who walk 3-4%, they don't just start walking 7-8%. It just does not happen. It's not. It's fundamental to who you are when you're taking walks that infrequently. You don't just start becoming a walk master. So I'm actually still with you on Tovar, but you're right. Like when you're looking at your shortstop rankings, you got those first two tiers there of real big time studs: Witt, Ellie, and Gunnar in one tier, Betts, Lindor, Abrams, Turner, Seager, Adames in the other. And then that very next tier is interesting but scary: O'Neill, Cruz, Volpe, Xavier Edwards, and Zach Neto. They've all got a big question. The main question mark for all of them is lack of track record, right? So they all have questions there. I
Well,
agree with you.
Neto's health. If
And Neto's
Neto
health,
is,
yeah.
yeah, like Neto is one of those guys that, like once I do these kind of projections and ranks, I'll be tweaking them and stuff throughout the off season. But for the most part, like
Same.
this is where I'm at with these guys, right? Like it's not going to change massively unless something changes massively.
Mm-hmm.
Except for like I like Neto, right? Like I lowered Neto's ranking from his projection because I don't know where the health is. He had the off-season surgery,
The shoulder, that's
the
going to sap
shoulder.
power.
So he's one of those guys that if he looks good in spring training, he could jump up into the next tier because I actually really believe in a lot of things that he did last year.
No, I'm actually completely with you on Neto. Would be gassing him up quite a bit more if we weren't dealing with the shoulder. He went 23-30. I think if you didn't have Neto on your team, you might be surprised to hear those numbers: 23 homers, 30 steals. So anyway, Adames, solid move, little bit of a dip going to San Francisco. Year one of a big deal. So, we just talked about that. I might have a little bit more caution than Justin would. I don't think it's like, never take him, meltdown city, but I'm eager to see the transition. the guy he essentially replaced in terms of the finances on the team. Obviously, he does not replace a pitcher on the mound, but he basically takes Snell's, dollar slot there. And Snell goes to the rival. He goes to the Dodgers. And in fact, we maybe should have let off with him because he was the first one off the board. And there's just no universe where I don't believe that after the season he had, he didn't call Boris and said, we're not doing that crap again, to where I sign on March 19th, because he fully admitted that the slow start is exactly, or the late start is exactly why he struggled. He had injury issues. He only had 6 starts through June. And he's like, I'm not doing that again. So he gets inked right away. He goes to the new evil empire, the Dodgers. How do you feel about Snell with LA? Justin's shaking his head for those that aren't watching.
Yeah, no. I mean, good for him. I'm glad he got paid. And, I'm also, I love how smart like he is, or maybe the Dodgers organization is, and like, hey, listen, like we'll give it to you as a sign. We're going to give you $60 million as a signing bonus, so that way you don't have to pay state income taxes on it in California. I mean, I hate this as a Giants fan, but I mean, as a fantasy player, I love it. Right, like you're going to the best team in baseball, and now like the only thing that really plagued Blake Snell once he kind of got on track last year was the fact the Giants don't win games. So
he went 5-3 in 20 games.
Yeah, I mean, it's unreal. Like, so yeah, like I'm a big fan of this for fantasy for right now. I mean, I don't know how well this ages, so
that's fair,
because Snell is a guy that he's 32 already. He has had a lot of injury issues in the past. So I'm a little bit skeptical that this is going to age very well, but I don't think the Dodgers care about that. They're hoping to win, 2 World Series in the next 3 years, on top of the one they just won. So, like they're hoping the world ends in 2030. So like they're like they're not on the hook
for any of that.
Yeah.
What's money? We don't have a currency anymore.
They're hoping the world turns into that Fallout TV show.
Exactly.
So they can pay Ohtani in bottle caps. So like I don't think it's gonna age particularly well, but I do think that he's just an elite pitcher when he's on. And the Dodgers are setting themselves up to just have a juggernaut team. So
yeah,
like,
and
I would be shocked if Blake Snell doesn't win like 15 games and have like a 3.3 ERA and a crap ton of strikeouts and a walk rate that you go, how is he doing this? But it's just Blake Snell.
Because he makes it work. There are purposeful walks behind what he does. I'm not saying he has the best control, but he's got better control than his walk rate would make you think at first blush. And it's worth noting that they're rebuilding their starting pitcher depth, right? The last year or two, it hasn't quite been there, even though they've had to still kind of dip into it. So we've seen a lot of these, maybe second-tier prospects come up, and second-tier Dodgers prospects are still pretty good players.
Yeah.
But as they get some guys back and add Snell, right now we're looking at a 6 of Snell, Yamamoto, Glasnow, Gonsolin, May, and Ohtani. And of course, there's question marks there. And they've got half a rotation on the IL with River, Ryan, Emmett Sheehan, and Gavin Stone, who won't even pitch this year. But then you got, I didn't even mention Knack, Michael Grove as the 7-8, in addition to the probably, or Bobby Miller. Hello, I didn't even mention Bobby Miller.
Yeah.
And then they'll probably take another reclamation project or two just to see.
They'll also get Sasaki, probably, right?
Right, right. I mean, I would not be surprised with that at all.
Yeah, is going to probably be a Dodger as well. We'll know in the next 40 days or so. So.
But yeah, so they're getting their stock back in order, so that even if Snell and Glasnow don't get 30 turns, as we don't really expect from either all the time, they're going to have that depth.
I think I think the depth that they got is going to allow them to continue with that 6-man rotation, right?
Yep.
I think while you definitely have to take some starts off for Snell, maybe that helps keep him healthier in the long term too. So
that'd be great.
I think this is a perfect fit for a guy like Snell. Obviously best team in baseball. And I don't think there is any question to who the best team in baseball is. So Dodgers are, so Yeah, I mean, this is again going back to like my gripes about my Giants. Like, this is exactly why I said like, just rebuild, and build the juggernaut the Dodgers are now. But yeah, whatever. I'll just enjoy fantasy baseball as opposed to real life baseball.
Right. But I'm pretty excited about that Dodgers pitching, and I know that you can't really expect even 150 innings maybe out of any of them, and yet I'm still drawn to Snell, Yamamoto, Glasnow, and Otani, just because of the innings that you do get should be so amazing. And as innings keep coming down, it makes rostering these guys a hell of a lot easier. You're not falling behind the way you used to be, so that's huge too. What about this next guy? Big arm. Now, we maybe should have done these in reverse order, the trade first and then the signing, but we're going to go with Max Fried first, then we'll get to Garrett Crochet. But it seems like Fried was basically a response to Crochet because he got traded over to Boston. Like, okay, well, that one falls through. Now we go get Fried. We don't care as much about the term of the deals, right? Because we're talking about fantasy for the next year or whatever. I don't like 8 years, man. I'm sorry. And I like Max Fried. He's an amazing pitcher, but you cannot get me comfortable with 8 years with his health track record. But again, we're not so concerned about that. The here and now, the next year. What do you think about Fried coming to New York to be their ace? Well, their number 2 behind Cole, excuse me.
I'm always going to be a little bit scared of Max Fried's elbow until it gets fixed, right? Like
Right.
he had elbow issues. He never got them fixed. He just kept pitching. And so like
He had a forearm strain, right? Which is usually a precursor. It took him a little IL stint, but he came back. He finished strong. He did have a bad playoff start, but it was one start.
Yeah.
And so that's how Fried's season ended, though, was that cloud of like, is this a problem?
The previous year in 2023, he had an actual elbow issue that he missed on.
Yes.
Like, so like I like the combination of these things, right? Like, like I just wrote a big article on risk for the FTN fantasy guide. Highly recommend you go read it. It kind of just outlines all my thoughts on how I kind of process things in terms of
worst friend ever. Forgot to give you my thoughts on it. I did read it, but I can give you the thoughts after. Sorry about that. I do remember because you sent it to me and I was like,
it's going live.
Still pulled up.
Yeah, it's going live, I think, on Monday.
Okay, so I'll send my thoughts on it. But I did enjoy it, so eager for people to get their hands on it. So, but yeah, so Fried and risk. Go ahead.
Fried's one of those guys that just kind of scares the crap out of me, and I do want to say though, like I did draft him in the league already, mostly because like he ended up being like my SP3. And like I just felt like that was such a fun I mean it's actually a really like crazy upside rotation. This is the league in which I went pitcher at the 15 spot. Pocket aces. I went Paul Skeens, Tariq Skubal.
And you have Fried?
Then I got both Diaz brothers as my closers. Max Fried is my number 3. Spencer Strider is my number 4. And Jeffrey Springs is my number 5. And that draft is still going on right now. So
that's pretty hot. I got to be honest. I like that pitching focus there.
Yeah, it's a pretty unreal rotation if things come together. But it obviously like writing an article on risk and then drafting that rotation was pretty silly. So
people can be like, "Did you read your own article, dude?"
Yeah, you clearly didn't read that one. But like I do worry about his elbow being an issue. I'm not necessarily like lowering his projection that much just because he did finish the year on the mound, which is kind of one of my big
we are very big on that.
Like if you finish year on the mound, I give you a lot of credit as opposed to a guy who, like gets shut down at the beginning of September and you never see him again. So, but I do have some res from a straight skills perspective. Max Fried is a fantastic pitcher. And like, I mean, I don't think there's any reason to be worried about him in Yankee Stadium. I think people forget that the Braves park, like they've got a short porch in right field too.
That's a good call.
And he was fantastic because he's a lefty, right? Like we're just not like if they had gone out and signed Corbin Burns, I would have had a lot of issues.
A little bit different.
Burns, in New York. And that would have lowered his projection quite a bit. But Max Fried being a lefty and not being a big homer guy to begin with, like I'm not super worried about him in New York. I think as long as he's healthy, that's the caveat. As long as he's healthy, I think he's going to be a really, really good pitcher, probably an SP2.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair with Max Fried. The Yankee Stadium thing doesn't really bother me. The only thing, again, just to kind of reiterate, the first year is a big deal. Might give me a little pause, but like you said, we always talk about when a guy finishes on the season on the mound, that's a big deal. Compared to those guys that are so nebulous, they haven't pitched since like June of the particular year, and you're just like, we haven't seen this guy in how long? So that does give me more confidence in Fried. He doesn't strike me as somebody who can't, handle the pressure and all that. It's definitely not that. It's just you get this huge deal. You're the dude. Now, maybe there is something to the fact, too, that he doesn't have to be the ace, right? I mentioned Garrett Cole. He could even technically be the 3 if Rodon is peaking as Rodon. Then, like, okay, don't worry, Fried. We don't need you to just carry the team. You're just part of a great rotation. So it was a good move for the Yankees to get him. It's the tenure that bothers me. But again, for fantasy, who cares? Because we don't have to commit to all 8 years. So we'll see how that goes.
It definitely felt like a panic move, right?
I totally agree. Yep. Here's 8. Please sign with us because things are happening.
The reports were like that there was no other team that was particularly close. Like, they just went, oh, God, we didn't get Soto. We need to do something. And there aren't any other hitters on at least the free agent market. They're in the stratosphere of Soto. So they were like, we're going to go get the guy we think is the best pitcher. And they did. And, I mean, good for them. Like, the rotation has been an issue, and now there's talk that, like, hey, Luis Heel could be part of like a Kyle Tucker deal, and so they're going to need that Max Fried. Yeah,
that would be bananas. Like I'm seeing these Tucker deals floating around. Cubs are.
He's gonna get like a ton because like there are not a lot of really, really good hitters left on the market. So like whoever even though Tucker's on a 1-year deal and he won't be signing an extension anywhere, especially not after what Juan Soto just got,
right? Unless someone comes with just an obscene deal that makes him not want to do the free agency. You're right. It will be a 1-year deal, but it is still Kyle Tucker, who is an awesome hitter. So I'm very eager to see how that goes. Let's talk about a trade that did happen. And this, again, we probably should have gone in the reverse order, but I wanted to talk about the Yankees first there. It was probably in response to this deal where they said, we lost Soto. We've now seen Garrett Crochet go over to Boston. We got to make a freaking move. So their 2 biggest rivals. Well, and I guess, it's hard to say the Mets are their rival just because, yes, there's interleague, but they don't play that much. Red Sox are far and away their biggest rival. They make a huge move. They lose Soto. And so they say, okay, we have to respond to that. That's why they got Fried. The Garrett Crochet deal, really impressed by both sides of this deal. This is a Chris Sale deal all over again, right? Where you see Crochet going from White Sox to Red Sox, and then an interesting prospect package coming to the White Sox here, headlined by Kyle Teal and Braden Montgomery. Chase Madroth and Wilkman Gonzalez were also involved, but Teal and Montgomery are the 2 that I think we're going to hit on most. But let's first talk about Crochet going to Boston. Now, I imagine, again, we'll get into it on Monday, but I imagine that my ranking of Crochet is part of your wannabe roasting of my SP rankings, because I got him very high. And I will say it was not in response to this trade.
No. You already had it done. Yeah.
I already had him at 4.
I saw your video with your TikTok video with Nick Pollock. While
I'm a hip kid now.
I actually don't have a problem.
I'm on the TikTok.
I don't have a problem with like Crochet being that high.
Okay, good. I wasn't sure.
So I don't know that I'm gonna have him quite that high. I think, the way you do your ranks and Nick does his ranks is different than the way I do mine.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're going to be differences in terms of where certain guys land.
And your projections will bring some of that, kind of hype down, right? Just the sobering of the projections will bring like, okay. Maybe
because you're not going to
Crochet's
project,
9th.
You're not going to project Crochet for 200 innings, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he has kind of a ceiling limit. You're same with, I think you have DeGrom 5. Like, there's no way DeGrom's 5 in my ranks. Like, it's just It just won't happen.
Right.
Which means I
And
probably
I do
won't get
get
a
that.
lot of Crochet or
Sure.
this year, which is
Yeah, because
fine.
they're going high. Like that 4-5 is an aggressive ranking, but they're going 39, 38 respectively in overall ADP. Like people are
One of the
drafting
reasons
Crochet and DeGrom.
one of the reasons I'm doing a few of these gladiators early before I'm done with my pitching projections, especially or done with my projections at all, is because I can take gambles on some of these guys that I know I won't be getting when March
Yeah,
comes
once
around.
your rankings come around, you're like, well,
Yeah,
I would never take my
yeah,
30th pitcher fourth,
yeah,
but I can right now because I don't have my projections.
yeah.
So,
So,
okay, Crochet
but
moving. The wins concern is now gone, at least, right? We don't have to hand
yeah,
wring about that all offseason. How many wins is he going to get with the White Sox? Because he's with at least a capable team. Even if you don't think Boston's great, they're not worst team in baseball history type bad either way. So the wins piece is better, but what about just the performance from Crochet after what you saw this year? What can he do for an encore in Boston?
I mean, I honestly think if this was a video game and we could turn off injuries,
Mm-hmm.
um, I would probably have Crochet right where you have him. Like I am not like I just think from a straight skills perspective, he is one of the best pitchers in baseball.
And
My
that's what drove my
question,
ranking, by the way, was just the talent. I'll let the innings shake out.
yeah, my question is always going to be about like how does his body and arm kind of bounce back after going from 12 innings thrown in 2023 to 146 innings being thrown in 2024. And we have to remember, like, he has been a reliever his entire major league career.
Right.
And then all of a sudden he does 32 turns in the rotation last year and 146 innings. And he also had injury issues as well, kind of coming up through the minors and in early on in the majors. So I'm just very concerned that it's all like that. It could be over in an instant. Now it could be over in an instant for any pitcher, but
Mm-hmm.
I do think there is, one of the things I talked about in my article is I do think there are guys that are inherently riskier, and I think Crochet is inherently riskier than your average or your normal major league pitcher because of this workload concern.
And I do agree with that. I always want to be clear that my big thing is the myth of safety. It's
Yeah,
not that I don't think Crochet and DeGrom are risky. It's that I don't believe that, say, Framber Valdez and Logan Webb are markedly safer than them. They might
yeah,
be a bit safer, but I might have the gap like this, whereas other people might have it like this. And that's my big
yeah,
contention. But otherwise, I do agree with you. Like Crochet does carry extra risk because of his history. How could he not, right? The best predictor of injury is previous injury. So
previous
go ahead.
injury. Yeah, yeah, and so I mean, I'm not gonna say like, hey, I'm not gonna draft him, but he will definitely be lower, I think, on my ranks than your ranks or than Nick's ranks. I think Nick has him at 3.
Yeah.
So like,
Is he is Crochet top 10 for you think? Just off the
oh
dome.
yeah,
I
yeah,
know it's your projections.
I
Okay.
absolutely think he is top 10. I'd be really surprised if he wasn't. Now, like I said, I haven't even started my pitching projections. I'm trying to get my hitting projections done by the end of the year, so that way I can really work on my pitching projections through January.
Mm-hmm.
But my guess is that he will fall probably in the top 8 or 9.
Okay. I think that's
So
fine for Crochet. All
uh,
right. I mean, and you could still get him, right? You go in the right room. Like we only have NFBC right now. We are the freaks that are drafting. We're the most intense. As a group, the people that are going to draft at this point, I think, are going to be taking on more risk. I think the
I
general
mean,
group
here's
of
the
people
thing.
that are drafting right now are more open to taking guys like DeGrom and Crochet. As we get to the spring, there will be rooms that are cooler on guys like that, and you might still get Crochet at 9 or 10.
Yeah, so like here's the thing, like you start looking at like the ADP for pitchers right now, and you obviously got Skeen, Skubal kind of 1, 2, Wheeler, Gilbert, Burns, right? So
Mm-hmm.
there's your 5. I'm not including Ohtani because I know Ohtani is a pitcher, but nobody's drafting him because
Right.
to use him exclusively as a
Only
pitcher, right?
Yahoo, right? Where you have to
Yeah,
do that. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, no, he's a unicorn weirdo, right?
Mhm.
But then you get past that and you go, like, is Garrett Crochet any riskier than Chris Sale? Is he any riskier than Jacob deGrom? Is he any
Not to
riskier
me.
than Dylan Cease or Cole Reagan. So like I can make the argument that he should be 6.
Okay.
He
And then
may
all of a sudden
be.
we're right by
I
each
may
other
have
at that point.
Kirby above him. But like, I think you can really realistically make the argument that he is a top 6, or 7 starting pitcher. And so like, I'm never gonna beat someone up because I go, oh, you've got him 4. Oh, you're crazy. I have him 6. Like,
right. I love when that happens.
I may do it for a meme.
Sure.
But come on, like that. It's a 2-spot rank. Who cares?
Isn't that
like,
what Eno and Nick did at FPAS last year, where they had a whole big argument? I think it was Snell.
It was
and then
Snell, yeah.
At the end, they're like, they were 3 ranks apart. They had this whole big disagreement, a pro con, and then it's like, okay, well, where do you have them ranked? 32. Where do you have them ranked? 35. And everyone just cracked up because they like couldn't believe they had this whole big debate over 3 ranking spots. So yeah, I agree with you there. It'd be more like people that have Crochet at like 15, 16 versus our 5, 6, 7, 8. That's a discussion there. I'm like, okay, well, where are you at when you got him down here? And I don't blame you. You mentioned somebody like Kirby, who I adore and I still think has like real upside to eventually find a strikeout pitch and hit another level. I don't mind taking somebody like that ahead of him. I've got Kirby right there as well. In fact, just 3 pitchers behind Crochet with teammate Gilbert. So I'm totally with you on that. We don't know what kind of innings he's going to get. I'm probably going to project something like around 160 through 142 this year. So it's a jump, but I'm not going to go crazy with it. I do think there's a world where we could get to 180 if Crochet stays healthy and they just kind of take him through 32 turns. At least he made the 32 turns. We know the second half was wonky because they were basically limiting him. The season was a lost cause. There was no need to push him. They knew in their hearts that they were almost certainly going to trade him this offseason.
They didn't want to break him before he...
Exactly. So he was a 4-inning guy from July on, and I'm okay with that. I really am. He still took 32 turns, so at least he's been through the grind of making it through 6 months. So I'm really excited about Crochet in Boston. I think it's going to be a nice move. Let's talk about the prospects. You're a big-time prospect guy. I definitely stay up on prospects. I know both. I know all 4 of these guys as I expand my bandwidth on prospects. But I know Teal and Braden. And when it was Teal, I'd originally heard it as Teal, Wilkeman, Gonzalez, and Chase Madroth. I had not heard Braden Montgomery. Once Montgomery was in it, I got to be honest, I love this for the White Sox. And I've been beating this drum now the last couple of years. I know that they just literally had the worst team in baseball history. They've been making good deals. They are amassing real talent. Let's talk Teal and Montgomery specifically here.
Yeah, I mean, this is I love how Brandon Montgomery is the one that comes up because Brandon Montgomery's not in the Fangraphs system because he didn't play.
Oh, because he got drafted hurt. That's right.
Yeah. So he's gonna play his first year pro ball this year. So like everybody's looking for Montgomery, but and they're like, oh, it's Braden.
They got this 28-year-old loser, journeyman type Brandon Montgomery. No shade to Brandon. I just called him a loser. You're not a loser, sir. I'm sorry. I'm the loser. But anyway, his profile's getting a lot of clicks because people are like, where the hell's Braden? But it is because he has not debuted yet. Texas A&M star, Stanford to A&M or A&M to Stanford. Either way, it's one of those two for Montgomery.
Stanford to A&M.
Stanford to A&M. Okay, so I think. How do you feel about Montgomery and Teal? Let's start with Teal. Catching prospect on the cusp, should certainly debut this year, we would think, for the White Sox. He had 28 games in AAA, could even debut at the beginning of the year. How do we feel about Teal as a fantasy option this year in 2-catcher deeper leagues where you might start caring about a White Sox catcher?
When I originally did my catcher ranks for the site, like I just put Teal kind of towards the bottom, right next to his now teammate Edgar Quero. Just like these are 2 catching prospects that are likely to debut at some point this year. So like for draft champions or obviously keeper dynasty, but like in a redraft league, I don't know that I'm a regular redraft league. I don't know that I'm drafting a guy like Teal.
Yeah, even 2 catchers, I don't think so.
Yeah, like even moving out of Boston where you have kind of a stalwart in Connor Wong there, what this did do for me is raise Connor Wong in my ranks because I was like, I think people don't realize like how much Connor Wong kind of fell off in the second half.
Yep.
And I was like, he could probably hold down the fort until, Memorial Day, and then all of a sudden they bring up Teal. Well, now they don't have a Teal to bring up. They don't have a guy, so Wouldn't be surprised if they go get like a James McCann or something like that to kind of work with Connor Wong.
Yeah, just like a true veteran C2 type
Yeah.
that won't really threaten Wong
Exactly.
playing time. Yeah.
So I do like Teal. I don't know that he is the like massive prospect that some people are thinking he is. I think some people see like, oh, I think MLB.com had him like as their 25th ranked prospect. Catching prospects are like the worst type of prospects.
Well,
in fantasy.
Okay, I was just saying, I'll let you explain because I think you're going to explain the difference between the real life versus fantasy. Because you'll see a highly ranked catching prospect. That doesn't mean that you want to draft him in fantasy because obviously catching is so much more important defensively. So I agree with you that guys like that can get overrated. You know who he used to all the time before people really knew who he was? Austin Hedges. He would show up high in like the top 50 of prospect ranks. And people would be like, oh, I'm just going to take this top 50 prospect. And we saw that he's one of the greatest catchers defensively ever, really, but one of the most dreadful hitters you've ever seen. So that can happen sometimes. Teal's not like that. I'm not saying it's a 1-to-1. No, but catchers do get overrated.
I think one of the reasons why he's so high up on like prospect lists is because he is a pretty good behind the plate catcher, at least projected to be, right? Like, I don't think he's going to be Austin Hedges style, but like, I think he is an above average defensive catcher who can frame and do all that stuff, which will bump him up lists because that's hard to find, especially from a young guy. And he's young. Catchers take forever to get through the minors, and Teal is rocketing through the minors. So he's one of those guys, like if you've gotten Dynasty right now, you should be looking to trade him.
Because hype is hot right now, you're saying?
The hype is super hot right now. Like I don't think he is, like, I don't think at any point we're talking about Kyle Teal as a top 5 catcher in fantasy. So
I don't think so either. And that's not a diss. That's just, I don't think he's quite that good.
He's got below league average power. He's got a little bit of speed to his game, but I think especially for like dynasty leagues, like that ages out. Like how many catchers do we really see stealing, 20 bases in the major leagues?
They're unicorns.
Like they're JT Realmuto and like, a couple random guys here and there. But like, I don't think Teal will be one of those guys. I think he'll throw in some speed. I think especially in today's game where we see guys steal bigger numbers than we ever have, really. Well, not ever have, but have in our generation
in quite some time.
Yes. Yeah. But I think Teal is going to be one of those guys who ends up being kind of a low end C1, high end C2 for a long time, and that has a lot of value to the White Sox. But for fantasy, like I'm not like overly enthused. And I don't know that this speeds up his timeline at all, right? Like, because I think Boston, if Wong was dreadful as a hitter, like he kind of was towards the end of last season, like they could rationalize, hey, like let's give Kyle Teal a shot. The White Sox have no timetable for being better, and they want to protect like their investments in terms of making sure they develop properly, and they also don't want to pay them. So, like, while I do think Teal is still up this year, I don't know that he's up any earlier. I think he actually could be up later than he would have been as a Red Sox. So
I think that's fair.
I think,
and people will assume the opposite. So I think stressing that point makes a lot of sense. That because they don't have incentive just because they're bad. They'll they'll keep that clock going unless they think he's ready from day one to try to maybe try to get one of those prospect picks. But I don't know that he's a Rookie of the Year candidate. That makes it worth doing that either.
Yeah. And they also, like I said, have Edward Guerrero.
Yes.
Who, he was in AAA last year as well, and he was better in AAA.
Yeah, I like him a lot. They could go Corey Lee, and just run those two for a bit and let Teal come up in the summer, similar to what we thought the Red Sox might. So this does not necessarily accelerate his timetable, but like I said, they are building some nice talent. That's some nice catching depth now to have Caro, Teal, Lee. Let's talk Braden Montgomery. Again, got hurt. I felt really bad for him, obviously as a Texas Longhorn, screw A&M, but it doesn't mean I'm a ghoul, and didn't feel bad for him hurting himself. I think either right in the College World Series or the regionals before, so he didn't get to play in that, but still obviously went with a high draft pick because he is a really, really interesting outfielder. And obviously his timetable isn't going to be this year, even as a college guy. But could we see him start making some noise in 25 if he has a nice first season? I imagine he'll get. I don't know if he'll get assigned directly to Double A, but he should be able to get to Double A by this
Yeah.
year, which means he'll then be a phone call away. What do you think of Braden Montgomery here as we looked for his pro career to get started this season?
Yeah, I think Montgomery is the like for fantasy at least is the get out of this, right? Like
Yes, I totally agree.
He was the 12th overall pick. He was a guy that people were really excited about in first year player drafts. He hasn't played in pro ball yet, but we all expect kind of the tools are going to be really, really loud and flashy. Now there is some of the risk, there's a ton of risk to Braden Montgomery in terms of, injury, in terms of is he going to make enough contact as a major leaguer to unlock some of these really flashy tools? But there's power and speed, and I believe he's got just a great arm in for right field.
Mm-hmm.
So I really like Braden Montgomery. He was one of my big targets in first year player drafts. I don't think I got him anywhere in my dynasty leagues that when he came out, but he's definitely the guy that I'm probably the most interested out of all these prospects in terms of dynasty perspective.
By a mile. I'm really excited about him. If you haven't done your first year player draft yet, Montgomery is somebody to watch. And similar to Teal, but a little bit different the way it's structured. I don't think this necessarily accelerates his time just because the White Sox are bad. Because again, he's recovering from, I believe, an ACL injury was what happened, and so he hasn't even debuted yet. So you don't have to go crazy. Even in like a draft champions, I would not be taking Braden Montgomery this year. But prospect leagues, dynasty situations, stay on top of what Braden Montgomery's doing because he could be really, really nice. All right, let's keep going here. We've got a few more moves. Let me see. I lost my sheet. Justin, I got 82 gazillion tabs open right now.
Jansen, baby.
Dan Jan. Okay, I really like this move. He stays. He's becoming the next Steve Pearce. Steve Pearce played for every team in the AL East, and Danny Jansen wants to do that too. He got Toronto. That's where he started. He got Boston under his belt last year, and now over to Tampa Bay.
Hard time getting to the other two, but yeah.
I think so. But with Adley and Austin Wells there, they both could be there for a decade. But the Rays have been looking for a catcher ever since they passed on Buster Posey for Tim Beckham 4,000 years ago. Is Dan Jan the solution? He's a hell of a catcher. He can play, good defense, has nice pop on a per at-bat basis. He's actually one of the better catchers over recent years. He doesn't gain damn at-bats because he's always hurt. What do you think of Danny Jansen as a Tampa Bay Ray?
I felt like this was one of his best landing spots.
I totally agree.
When he signed there, I went, whoa, I did not expect him ending up in Tampa. Like that wasn't on like my list of spots for Jansen, but I was like, oh, this makes a lot of sense. Like Tampa Bay does not have a lot of depth in terms of catcher. I think what Rene Pinto was the backup or was the other guy,
and Ben Rortvit was in the mix.
Yeah.
Like it was not a good situation at catcher for them. Yeah, Alex Jackson, Rene Pinto, Ben Rortvit were the three highest plate appearance guys for them behind the dish last year. And again, this is not new. They've been chasing catcher for so long in Tampa Bay.
So I think this is a perfect fit for Jansen. I think it gives him his best opportunity to rack up plate appearances, which is fantastic. I mean, I think the concern is what you kind of mentioned is that he's had a really hard time staying healthy. But I mean, I think he's a fine, like C2 to take a gamble on because I do think there's upside, and I put him in that kind of like red flags with upside kind of tier because if he stays healthy and he can get like 110 games, played, like I think he's a guy who can hit 20 plus home runs with a good batting average. The question is, will he? I didn't project him for that. I think I projected him for 15 home runs and like a 230 batting average. But like that's fine as a C2. Like you'll take that.
No, that's totally where I'm at with Danny Jansen. I love him as a C2. I expect to get a good number of shares of him because of that, and
Hmm.
I'm really eager to see what he can do. Because yeah, if you can spike that health, he can end up delivering C1 value too. So that's
Yeah.
pretty nice. Let's talk a couple pitchers here. Luis Severino out to the Athletics. No city there. They're not embracing Sacramento. They're just ATH. So Severino to the Athletics
Which
in their
totally freaking throws me off.
completely,
I just
completely, dude.
this is very much like, the Raiders and the Chargers, like moving cities. The Raiders going to Vegas and Chargers
Yep.
going to LA, or going to LA. Like, I still struggle. Like, I don't
Dude,
cover football anymore, so I don't have to write about it. But
I
um,
still see LAC and say Clippers on occasion. My brain
yeah,
just for
uh-huh.
the LA Chargers. So I'm totally with you there. But this is their biggest outlay for a free agent contract ever. Do I have that right with the
Hmm.
Severino deal? I believe that's the case.
It is, yeah.
Again, we're not so concerned about the terms of things because it's about the next year. But how do we feel about Sevy reestablishing his value in New York, now heading out west to Sacramento to play with the A's? Are we excited by this move for Sevy?
I don't know. I'm actually looking up a tweet as we speak because I tweeted about Severino. Okay, well, not that tweet.
While you find that, I just want to point out 182 innings, almost 100 more than the year before when he threw 89 with a 391 ERA and 124 WHIP. So like a nice solid season, but he wasn't amazing. And he's 31 years old, bevy of injuries. So there are questions here with Sevy.
Yeah, of course, the one that comes up is Severino signs in Northern California, and then Northern California gets hit by a massive earthquake. Even God hates the A's. That's not the tweet I was looking
That's
for.
funny though.
But okay, here we go. So he signed for 3 years, $67 million.
Hmm.
The A's payroll last year was $62 million.
Jesus, dude.
Yeah. So
That's
yeah.
crazy.
Now, someone made a really good point is players don't want to play in Sacramento. It's a AAA park.
Hmm.
And they're going to be there for 3 years. If they're going to get people to go there, they're going to have to overpay.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what they did on Severino. I don't mind this move. Like, it's obviously not going to be the park that it was in Oakland, but I don't think it's going to be a AAA. I don't think it's necessarily going to play like a AAA park because, as we've talked about, like it's a little bit larger than like a lot of the PCL parks and
Right.
the other factors. So, like, I don't think this is a bad move. Do I want Severino for fantasy? Probably not. Like, the A's aren't going to win a lot of games, and like maybe depending on where his price.
Do you think they're going to win though? Because I actually think like they won 69 last year. I'm not pretending they're a great team.
Nice.
And very nice. And I know that you took the fat dub on them
Yeah.
having the back-to-back 100 loss seasons, right? They'd never done it before. I staked my claim on history. I was wrong. But I do think that like they turned a corner last year. 19 more wins than the year before, and some really, really compelling players, like a good group of 8 to 10 players that you can say, here's a core that they're working on.
Yeah.
Now they add Severino to it. Can they not be a high 70s, low 80s win team next year? Like
I
without
think
it being too much of a stretch?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know where the over-under is going to be, but like, yeah, like if they win 75 games, I'm not going to. I mean, the Pirates won 76 games, like so. Like,
right.
why
So
can't the A's
I think they
win
could threaten
75?
500.
Yeah,
I think they could. Okay. Well, then I don't want to break it down too much there on semantics. I wasn't sure if you had them for another sub 70 win season. It could happen, but I think they got a chance to be a good bit better.
Yeah, I think it's definitely in the range of outcomes that they.
Sure, that's fair. I can't deny that.
Win 65 games.
Now, so what do you think of this Suter?
Division isn't going to be as good if the Astros are going to do.
That's true too. So. That's true too. And we don't know like where's Texas at. In LA, of course, we're not scared of. And at least pitching against Seattle is not that hard for other pitchers, right? Because their offense isn't great. So this Suter, is it called Suter Home Park or something like that? I think for Sacramento. Sutter Home Park. Sutter Health Park, excuse me.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's not going to play exactly like a AAA park, but do we have any inclination of how it's going to play? Do we think that this is going to be worse than City? Okay.
I'm waiting for someone like Todd Zola or
Derek
Carty to like come out and be like, okay, here's my projections for it.
Right.
And then I will I kind of gave when I did my projections on ace guys, or ace hitters, I kind of just left it as like a neutral park. Like I
think that's
definitely
fair right now.
And then I will like that's that one in Camden, with the changes that are being made in Camden. Like I'm gonna wait for people who are smarter than me to figure out what the factors are gonna look like. So and then I'm also not gonna overrate that, because every year
Same.
like factors come out. Like remember when Toronto was like going to turn into like like
2
a
years
massive,
ago,
hitters park, and then like Detroit, like, and like don't get me wrong, there were changes, but like it wasn't the massive changes that people were kind of projecting, because I think people just overrate like how things are going to look in that regard.
Totally agree. So putting a bow on it then with Severino, let me give you his ADP and ask you if you're interested. Pick 280 as the 111th pitcher off the board. That's relievers and starters combined. Are you okay with that? Is that too high for you with Sevy? Okay.
I mean, because then you're talking about he's going in like a spot similar to like Merrill Kelly and Eric Fetty and Mitch Keller. Like, yeah, like I don't, maybe I like Fetty a little bit more than that. But like that feels like the right type of spot for him, right? Like how much different is Luis Severino than Mitch Keller at this point in both their careers? Like, I think they're
different
about
at all.
same. Yeah. Like, have we seen them in the same spot?
I don't think we have. Now they look a little different. I can find some differences there, but in terms of the skills profile, I'm not seeing too much difference between Mitch Keller and Luis Severino. So yeah, I think that's a good range for his draft price. If you like Luis Severino, I think you can still like him with with the Athletics, and also he's the rare guy who signed and ADP went down using the two splits that I had early, mid-October to mid-November, and then mid-November to now mid-December. He's gone from 264 ADP to 280. Usually when guys sign and they have some stability, their price goes up.
Yeah.
His has come down about a round. So if you like Severino, you should like him even more now because the price dropped for you. All right, let's keep going and talk about another pitcher. My team gets to get in focus a little bit here with a small move. I hope this isn't their only shot at a reclamation project, because I'm not quite sure that Alex Cobb can be the next Jack Flaherty, just because Cobb is always hurt. Always. So we know that that's a factor. So let's just talk about like 100 innings. Let's not, I mean, he only got 16 last year, so that'd still be a huge jump. But let's put the 37-year-old in the 100 inning range here and have the conversation that way. What do you think 90 to 100 innings of Alex Cobb as a Tiger looks like? Is that something that gives you any interest? He's still a control artist. His bat missing was terrible last year, but it was 16 innings. It wasn't great with your boys the 2 years before that at about 22% for 300 innings. Is there anything here? Any juice to squeeze from Alex Cobb as a super late round draft champions type guy, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, as a draft champions guy, it makes a lot of sense. I just don't think this is one of those guys you're drafting in your regular leagues, even a 15-teamer.
Fully agree. At least not now. Maybe in spring. Yeah. Maybe.
Well, and I don't even think in spring. I think he's one of these guys you stream off the wire.
That's fair.
Yeah, like I think this is a reclamation project, but also just like, hey, this is an affordable arm that gives the Tigers a little bit more depth in that rotation. Because while Skubal looks great at the top, then you've got a lot of question marks
for sure.
Like Reese Olson has shown some things, but he's also like, I think he's just kind of a mediocre pitcher.
I'm sorry. What did you just say to me, sir?
It's gonna get worse. When I talk about Casey Mize. Casey, like Casey Mize. Like he is just a generic mediocre pitcher. Jackson Jobe, I think, has
deny that. Jackson
Jobe has like legit upside.
Major upside.
I love it.
You won me back. You won me back with that.
I also don't know, like, are they going to just let him loose in this season, or
probably not? Because I think they sign at least one other guy because they want to have depth too. They know they need a stock of 10, 12 starters that you can rely on. Because after Skubal, like you said, it's not much. And they did the pitching chaos thing, right? Where they didn't really have any set spots after that. You can't get through a full season doing that, but they know that they don't have 3-4 other guys that are going to go
Yeah.
150 plus. So they are going to have to spread it out behind Scoobs.
I mean, they do have some depth. Kenta Maeda,
Yeah.
right now not projected for the rotation, but he's there. Brant Herter showed some things.
I was really
he's
impressed
projected
with
for
him
the
down the stretch.
Yeah, he was projected for the bullpen. They're not. Sawyer Gibson Long should be back at some point. He had the internal brace surgery in April, so he could be back in June. Matt Manning is still in the organization. Alex Fado is still in the organization. So they do, Kyoto Montero. They have some depth now, but I do like this. I do like Alex Cobb as a guy you can put on a draft champions team, or you could just stream. I don't know who the Tigers open up with, but the Tiger. Whoever the Tigers play may be the reason why I draft Alex Cobb or I don't draft Alex Cobb.
Right.
If they
to get
open
those
up with
first couple starts. Yeah. I can actually look it up real quick. Go ahead. Keep talking.
Yeah. It's if they're open, I mean, they play in the Central, so they could open up against a bad team. So, though, I mean, three of their teams made the playoffs, so maybe not. So,
still crazy, by the way.
If they open up against the White Sox or the A's.
No, you're not sneaking any Tigers early. They open in LA against the Dodgers.
Yeah, no.
And then 3 in Seattle.
So you're not drafting Alex Cobb, but you are putting him on as when the White Sox series is coming up, I'm gonna try to sneak him for that. Or
third series of the season is the White Sox, but then it's New York right after that too, the Yankees. So
it's a quick streak. So
be careful.
I don't think Cobb is one of those guys. The strikeouts have seemingly disappeared over the last 2 seasons. He still puts up good ratios, and I do think the Tigers are going to be a competitive team that can potentially make a push for a playoff spot again this year. So, I think he's going to be a good streaming guy that might jump on and off your roster a few times.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. Nothing more, nothing less with Alex Cobb. Solid move. I like it as a reclamation. Jake Berger got out of exile in Miami, and he's going to Texas. We've had some nice words to say about Jake Berger these last couple seasons as a nice power guy. How do we feel about him coming to Texas? He's on a quality team now for the first time ever. He went from the White Sox to the Marlins. And I know the Marlins, they made the playoffs 2 years ago, didn't they? Yeah. Because I think he drove in the clinching run in 23 for that. But now on Texas, part of, like I said, a much better team, better park. It's not the craziest park or anything, but it's better than Miami. Are we more excited about Jake Berger here?
You're getting him away from that park is a problem in Miami to begin with. Though, like you said, Texas isn't that much better.
It's not amazing, but it's a much better lineup. So even if the parks were same, I would still see this as a big jump for Berger just getting into
the lineup. Yeah, the lineup is a huge difference. I'm really interested to see what the Rangers do in terms of where they play him. Right now we have him penciling as DH. That may be where he ends up.
Is that good or bad for you? Would you have any sort of feeling about that one way or the other? There's a DH penalty or whatever, but it's not that crazy.
Yeah, I think whatever DH penalty, he played 26 games at DH last year, and I also think he'll be one of these guys that he's not. I don't think he'll be an exclusive DH, right?
Agreed.
Nate Lowe isn't very good. Josh Young can't stay healthy. I think.
Wait! Why are we hating on Nate Lowe? I'm still in.
In it, what? What is Nate? I like Nate Lowe.
Okay, fairness. In fairness, we're 2 years removed from the mega. I thought it was in 23, the 27 homer season. But you're right.
Nate Lowe is great in on-base percentage leagues. And
it's been
one
2
of those guys that in Tout Wars I love getting for cheap because people go, well, he's boring. And I was like, yeah, but dude walks. In an on-base percentage league, he makes a lot of sense. But
you know who he's been? He has been Brandon Belt these last 2 years, and he had his breakout. Remember, Belt had the breakout late in his career. Lowe had his early 2022, but then his last 2 years and the year before that have all been Brandon Belty, which I like. That's fine, but it's really more of a CI. So you're right. I won't push back on that as aggressively as I did.
I thought you were gonna go to an older name.
Who? Casey Kotchman? No, I'm just kidding.
Literally, I have Casey Kochman.
Are you serious?
Lined up, that's who I thought you were going with.
That's so funny.
No,
exactly. I think Belt. I think Belt Nick Johnson vibes are what I'm getting more from Nathaniel Lowe, which, again, not as hot on that.
Legitimately, I'm sharing my screen right now.
That is so funny, dude, that I nailed it.
Up Casey.
Do we know each other or what? Do we know each other
yeah.
or what?
That's amazing. So so Berger, I love this move for him. He just hit 36 home runs in Miami, he hit 29 home runs in Miami last year, 34 the year before between Chicago and Miami. Dude could hit 36 homers in any park in baseball. I don't. And I think he's going to be fine. I know he had a struggle to start the year, but he was unreal in the second half. So I love this. He's, I don't know where his ADP is jumping right now, but
I got you 1 second.
Give me all the Berger shares. First and third base eligible. And we talked a lot about how really down first base was last year. Yep. And third base is always kind of a tricky position. He's just, he's a guy that I love.
His ADP has held almost exactly the same, from 124 in the first sample to 125. And again, with third eligibility, I am open for that with Jake Berger. Yeah. Sign me up. Yeah. All right, last move here. It's got a bunch of moving pieces here. So first, Andrés Giménez was traded from Cleveland to Toronto. And the big piece that came back, at least in my eyes, I'm a big Spencer Horwitz guy. He comes back to Cleveland, and I get all excited because Cleveland's a nice park for lefties, until he's immediately traded to Pittsburgh. So we'll get to that piece of it all in a moment.
I missed
You missed that? Yeah. Immediately flipped to Pittsburgh for Luis L. Ortiz and some prospects. I kind of stunned by that, but I guess maybe that, with Naylor and Manzardo, it makes sense why they would flip him, because Horwitz can't really play second base. He's a fake second baseman. So I do understand, but I was just bummed because I really, really like Horwitz. But anyway, we'll get to Horwitz in a moment. Let's talk Giménez. Moving from Cleveland to Toronto. If I were a Cleveland fan, I'd be so pissed. They actually signed somebody for once, right? They signed him, to I think a pretty fair deal. It wasn't obscene. His defense kind of, gives his value a nice floor, but it was about to get expensive. After the 10.5 mil this year, it's 15.5, then 23.5 for 3 straight years. And the, poverty-stricken Guardians, run by the Dolans, who also own 5 other teams or some crap, they can't possibly pay that, so they had to move him. It's a pure money dump. But do you like this for Giménez getting to Toronto? Do we think that could do anything for him? Or, and I think this is probably where you're going to go, are you concerned that the 30 steal seasons might evaporate? Back-to-back 30 steal seasons, super efficient, so maybe they still let him run, but do we see any positivity here as the 26-year-old Andrés Giménez moves to Toronto?
Yeah, it's the stolen bases that really concern me. I think in terms of the parks, I don't think there's going to be a major difference. I think he is a low double-digit homer guy. The problem is the Guardians were the team that stole the 5th most amount of bases in baseball last year, and Toronto stole the 27th. And we're talking about a difference of cutting the team totals in half. So, 148 to 72.
Could that be because they did not have steal-worthy guys? And that now that they have somebody who is so efficient, they let Varsho go 10 for 12, light total, but very efficient. They let Springer go 16 for 17. And I just mentioned Giménez's 2 years here, 30 steals apiece with 6 and 5 caughts, respectively.
I do think that this is somewhat of an organizational philosophy, though, because
no, you're right.
There are guys on that team that can run, and they let them run a little bit, but they don't run a lot. So I've got to update my Giménez projection, but my guess is I drop him closer to 18, 19 stolen bases, which is going to massively hurt his value in fantasy. Now I could see him bumping back up on the runs, and maybe a little bit on the RBIs too. I do think that when kind of healthy, that Blue Jays offense can be pretty powerful, like at the top. The question is, does Giménez actually hit towards the top, or do they, right now we've got him projected at 6. Like, he's not a big OBP guy.
Right.
So I think there's a chance that, he probably hits 6. That hurts. Yeah. I don't love this. What I do love this for is guys like Kevin Gosman,
Yes.
pitchers on this team.
Yes,
Because
that's a good call out.
like the Blue Jays have been running just like random dudes at second base for years now. And Giménez is a plus defender. And so, like, I think you're getting a guy that can really help that pitching staff in Toronto. So for, Kevin Gosman, for Barrios, for, Bowden Francis, and I mean, probably the most for a guy like Chris Bassett.
Right.
So, like, I do think that it really helps the pitchers there. As far as Giménez goes, that hurts. Like, you're talking about a guy that, has been stealing 30 bases pretty much every year, of his career. And I don't think he's gonna, like, he may hit 20, but I just don't think there's any way he gets up to 30 in Toronto with the way the organization runs.
I really can't push back too hard. The best I can say is I just hope that they see how efficient he is and deem that enough to allow
the problem is when you're
Andrés
batting
to keep running.
Cleveland let him bat high up in the lineup all the
Right.
time. So, like,
and you're saying if he bats lower, maybe they don't let him run as much?
Well, there's going to be guys clogging. Like,
Yeah.
and then, are they going to, I mean, maybe if he gets up when, there aren't any guys on. But I mean, he spent 78 games batting second last year for Cleveland. I don't think he's doing that in Toronto. I think he's batting 6. And while he could still steal 30 bases from that 6 spot, like, I don't know that Toronto gives him the opportunity to.
And you mentioned that he's Andrés Giménez is kind of a low double digits homer guy, and I don't disagree with that, but he was only at 9 last year.
Yeah.
So if he doesn't get back into that double digit total,
you're talking about a guy who's
really concerned.
Yeah, like if he hits 8 home runs and steals 15 bases.
Yeah, what the hell you getting there? So that's a little dicey. Let me give you his ADP here and see if you're interested in paying it for Andrés Giménez before the trade. 186, and then recently, now there probably have not been any, actually it's not even worth comparing the two because there probably haven't been any completed drafts since he's been traded, but in the more recent sample he was at pick 170, so a 6-pick rise. Do we think this, would you pay this somewhere in the 170 180 range, 185 range for Giménez?
I don't necessarily have a problem with that because there is kind of a big drop off at second base. There's a number of big drop offs at second base, but he kind of is one of the last guys from that tier that you probably are interested. Like, it's kind of Gleyber Torres, Nico Horta, who's got, injury issue, and Luis Ariz, who doesn't fit a lot of roster constructions. And then you're dropping down to like the Jackson Holidays and the Mikhail Garcias and things like that. So, I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, I think that despite the concerns, there is still a world where drafting Giménez makes some sense because of second base. So that's a good call out there. All right, now Horwitz. Like you said, you didn't even know that he was traded because it kind of happened under the radar right after the first deal. So he goes from Toronto to Cleveland, now out to Pittsburgh. It's not that he can't succeed in Pittsburgh. It's just that, again, Progressive is a good place for lefties to hit. And so it just had me excited that, like, okay, he's leaving Toronto, but he's still going to Progressive. I like that. Now he's going to Pittsburgh. I'm not as keen on it, although I'm looking, and maybe that's my misperception. Wow. They are 4th in overall park factor for lefties the last 3 years, PNC Park. So my bad on that one. Now let's see if it's base hits. Okay, so the homers, it's 102, so it's pretty neutral there. It's the extra base hits, but I do think that he could be like a doubles god with solid. Like I really like Horwitz as a hitter. I think he's a really good hitter. I'm excited that I think he was going to play in Cleveland. I think they could have found a spot. Well, actually, maybe he wasn't. That's why they moved him because
I think they would, because I think they're going to move Naylor.
That's kind of what when he first got dealt, I was like, oh, then Naylor's gone. But the fact that they flipped Horwitz right away suggests that maybe Naylor isn't gone, or maybe he isn't, because Manzardo's still there too. So they could still flip Naylor, put Manzardo as the premium first,
and then they can put
starting first baseman.
Noel as their DH.
Right. So that this does not mean that Naylor won't get moved. But Horwitz in Pittsburgh should have free and clear path. Like there is no reason that he cannot be. Rowdy Tellez not coming back. He was their first baseman last year, right? Or was that 2 years ago?
I think it was 2 years. No, it was last year. Yeah,
okay.
Last year.
So, and it didn't go well there. So first base is Horwitz's, at least on the strong side. Do we like Horwitz in Pittsburgh? Especially now that I gave you that info about the park actually not being too bad. I was wrong on that.
I do. I really like Horwitz. And if anything, I think this drops his price.
Yes, because people will be scared.
Yeah. You're talking about a guy who is first and second base eligible, which you kind of love. Kind of getting that middle and corner bat. He's a high on base percentage guy. He's also a high contact guy. Spencer Horwitz makes like really, really good in zone contact. I think he's one of these guys that actually, if he kind of turned up his aggressiveness, like he could be, a 25 to 30 home run bat. I don't think he's going to do that.
It's in there though. I totally agree with you.
I do think that he has that kind of power inside that bat. That being said, I think this is like a really, really great move by the Pirates, and we don't get to say that very often because, they're an organization that like really just doesn't do things extremely intelligently. But like you're talking about a guy who's probably going to bat fifth in this lineup, and honestly, I could see him moving up. Maybe even to like leading off at some point. I know like you don't see a lot of first basemen leading off, but like he is, and he's a guy like he walked 17% in AAA last year. He has 15+%, walk rates throughout the minor leagues, and he's shown really, really good plate approach at the major leagues. And so would it be weird to see a guy like him like lead off? It would, but like Isaiah Kiner-Falefa is not a leadoff hitter. Like he shouldn't be leading off. No. And so while Kiner-Falefa is a really interesting guy for DCs because he's leading off, I really like Horwitz a lot. I think, he's cheap. Like you're not going to have to spend very much money on Spencer Horwitz. Currently going.
Are you ready for this price point?
Yeah, I got it. 437 is what I have,
dude. I'm paying that all day.
I love that price on a guy like Spencer Horwitz. He jumps up like 50 spots. Like
I'd pay anything post 300 for Horwitz. I'm really, really keen on him. And you highlighted one of my favorite aspects right off the bat. First, second eligibility is a unique combo. And you already talked about some of the drop-offs at second with Giménez. It's a different profile that you're getting, but I really, really like this guy. So, I'm very interested in Mr. Horwitz. And, despite the quick move from Cleveland to Pittsburgh right away, not a bad move, especially now that I saw those park factors. So there you go. You're caught up on the hot stove. It's been blazing hot. We have not gotten a slow off season. This has been so fun. I've really, really enjoyed it. But we still have a lot to get to, right? There's still Burns out there. There's still trades to be done. There's other great free agents. Like it's not over, but it's already cooking, which is great.
There's still 6 or 7, top tier free agents out there. I mean, we're gonna still have quite a bit of moves, but it's mid-December and we've already got a bunch of guys who signed. So I am very thankful and grateful that MLB is not going to hopefully push free agency into March again. So at least it feels like they're not.
No, I mean, there might be some stragglers. There kind of always is, but it doesn't look like it's going to be, and we already know it's not going to be one of those drag out off seasons, which is awesome. So again, we'll be back next week with a couple EPs. We'll keep you guys posted on what the holiday week looks like, but I know I said it last time and I was proven a liar, but we are back. Don't worry. And all our rankings are up. So go check those out. We're going to be updating those regularly. Justin's already made updates on both of his ranking sheets that he put up. I will have my first SP one sometime next week. And all right, Justin, great talking with you. Have a good rest of your day and we'll talk early next week.
Take it easy.